This is a story about the human condition and the strength of decision-making. It's about how forgiveness and letting go can help us move forward. Rob faces a painful divorce, deceit and disappointment, but ultimately finds happiness. I've learned from my own experience that you need to check everything carefully before getting married. It's an extremely important moment, and if you don't take into account all the nuances, it'll all become clear in the future. I wasn't a fool. I was taken advantage of and led by the nose by the people I trusted the most and thought I could rely on them at any moment. I instructed the two gentlemen carrying the dresser to I put it against the wall and went back to hanging the pictures. Tom came over with 2 suitcases. He asked where I wanted them. I said on the floor in front of the bed. When you bring in the items on hangers, just put them in the closet. Once the pictures were up, I arranged them. I put the suitcases on the bed and started unloading them into the dresser drawers. The other boxes were brought in by Tom and 2 others, Mike and Phil. I told them to put the stuff in the closet. Phil gave me a travel case and said, "This is the last of it." I took the case and said I'd meet them. After unpacking my case and organizing its contents on top of the dresser at Murphy's Tavern, I stepped back to survey the room and adjust a few items for a more uniform appearance. I was happy with the overall arrangement and left the room to head to Murphy's to join my friends. I was enjoying my second beer when my cell phone interrupted the moment. I glanced at the screen and saw that the call was from my wife. I answered and said hello. "Rob, I'm at the house and I can't get in. The garage door opener isn't working and none of my keys fit the locks." I was surprised to hear Maggie say that, since you don't live there anymore. "I live here." "Where are you, Maggie? Before I tell you what's going on, there's a man coming up the walkway right now. He'll answer all of your questions. Goodbye." 5 minutes later, my cell phone rang again. It was my wife. "Rob, what's this nonsense about divorce?" "No nonsense, Maggie. I just decided that it was time to end things with Rob. Don't be ridiculous. I've never cheated on you." "I'm not being ridiculous, Maggie. I'm not blind or stupid anymore. Don't call me again. You've been served, and the papers have my attorney's name and phone number. Any communication between us from now on will have to go through him. I moved all of your things out of the house and into your lover's place. Goodbye, Maggie." We hit it off straight away and stayed close throughout high school. After graduation, I went on to study business management at college, while Tom joined the Navy. We reconnected when he came back from his service and met up once or twice a week, as well as hosting monthly cookouts in either his backyard or mine. We met up at Murphy's Tavern. I saw that the town was already seated at a back table, so I waved at Sally as I passed the bar. She quickly handed me a drink and gave it to Sherry, who was seated across from me. I asked her what was going on. "It's not good, buddy. I won't come off looking great here, so I think it's important to provide some context. Remember our high school days? If a girl didn't engage on the first date, there wouldn't be a second one. Our philosophy was that if she did on the first date, 1 wasn't enough and 4 was too many. Yeah, but that's ancient history. I'd say that convinced me that sex was just entertainment, fun, not something to be taken seriously. You know, Barb and I are swingers. We keep it on the down low unless someone comes to us with it, and we only swing with out-of-town groups. Barb sees sex as something to be enjoyed without love and devotion. I love Barb to death, and everyone knows it. It doesn't bother me. I want to see her enjoying herself with someone else because I know she'll be going home with me, committed to spoiling me rotten. What does that have to do with me? I'm working on it." After leaving the Navy, our approach to relationships changed. I had already met Barb and believed she was the one for me, while you were dating Maggie. Additionally, we had matured a bit with age. I married Barb and you married Maggie, and the following 6 years passed happily until 2 weeks ago. What happened in the 2 weeks since? You sat at this very table after a few beers and shared that you felt something was wrong in your marriage. You even mentioned that, and I quote, "If I didn't know better, I would say Maggie is cheating on me." Remember that? Yeah, I do. Rob, that's what brings me here today. Maggie is cheating on you. You've got to be kidding. I'm not. Maggie has been cheating on you. You are serious as death. How long have you known? That question is a tough one, Tom. You brought it up, so you need to be honest. I've known for 2 weeks that she's been cheating on you since before you got married. Have you been drinking all day? Of course not. Why would you even ask that? What you said makes no sense. You've only known her for 2 weeks. You say she was cheating before we got married, but we got married over 6 years ago. I knew about her activities before that, but it wasn't until our conversation 2 weeks ago that I realized it constituted cheating. I guess I assumed you and I had the same perspective on sex, that it was enjoyable and entertaining, and not necessarily tied to love or devotion. I understood that you and Barb weren't like me, but I know everyone has their own preferences. Some men enjoy watching their wives with other men, while others like the idea. Some men like to share the details afterwards, while others find excitement in having a more adventurous spouse. Some men allow their wives some freedom to maintain harmony in the family, while others don't mind as long as their wives return home. I assumed you fell into one of these categories. If you fall into one of these categories, why would you assume that I wouldn't do the same? Maggie has been engaging in this behavior for over 6 years, at least twice a week. How could you not be aware? I mean, come on, Rob. Concealing infidelity for 6 or maybe 8 months is one thing, but for 6 years? I assumed you must have known. Just as you knew about Barb and me without ever mentioning it, I never brought up what I thought was happening between you and Maggie. Do you think that, since you know me so well, you might have assumed the same about me? I thought about what he said for a moment before answering, no, not at all. It's been going on for as long as you say. I can see why you think that, but it's still strange that I didn't notice for so long. I only started to think something was up a month or so ago, so I guess the main thing I want to know is, I listened carefully to Tom's account of everything he knew for certain, his suspicions and the information he'd gathered from others. When he finished, I sat there, thinking. What's your plan? Tom asked. I'll gather evidence and then expose that deceitful person. I replied, while driving. On my way home, I thought about the first time I met Maggie. My brother Jerry and his wife Christina had invited me to a barbecue on Sunday. When I arrived, Christina grabbed my arm and insisted on introducing me to someone. This wasn't the first time Christy had tried to play matchmaker. I'd been with Mara for 3 years until she told me she was seeing someone else. Christy had set me up with 6 other people. Marcia's news came at a bad time, as I'd planned to propose that night. I said, I hope you have a nice time, and opened the ring box. I glanced at the ring and said, I guess I'll return this tomorrow. He got up, walked away from her, and ignored her calls for the next 2 weeks until she gave up. Now there was Christy trying to, despite my repeated requests for her to stop, she kept trying to set me up with other people. I gently pulled my arm away from Christina's grip and said, No, Christina, not this time. Then I went to find some beer at the gathering. There were about 24 people there, and I knew at least half of them as I chatted to people and looked around. I noticed the women there trying to figure out which one Christina thought I'd be interested in, despite Christina's assumption that there was a specific type I'd like. I'd already tried 7 times to meet someone similar to Mara, but none of them were right. I looked around, but I couldn't see anyone who matched my idea of the perfect person. Then I saw a woman with dark hair who caught my eye. She was with a group of guys, but she stood out. There were a few guys there, and it looked like one of them might be her husband, fiancé, or boyfriend. I didn't think she was already taken, but I figured there was no harm in trying. I put my empty beer bottle on a table and went over to the woman who seemed to be the center of attention. I said, I hope you don't mind the interruption. Christina asked me to come over and find you. Who might you be? I'm Rob. Christina is my sister-in-law. Right, we shouldn't keep her waiting. Let's get going. I noticed she'd been drinking white wine, so I led her to the bar and offered to refill her glass. I thought we were going to meet Christina. What I meant was that Christina sent me to find you. Could you explain that to me? When I arrived, Christina mentioned that she said she wanted me to meet someone who was just perfect for you, Rob. Unfortunately, she got caught up with someone else before she could introduce me to this perfect lady, so I wandered around until I found you. She looked at me and then Remar, and you immediately recognized that I was the perfect match for her. I could tell even from across the room that you two were meant to be together. Christina approached us. Oh, you found each other? Maggie asked, is it right this time? I replied, it's a long story, but I'll share it all on our first date, which I hope will be tomorrow. It was, and it marked the beginning of a courtship that concluded 6 months later when Maggie and I exchanged vows in front of a municipal judge with Christina and my brother Jerry as witnesses. Summoning all myself, I managed to keep my cool when I got home. Maggie welcomed me with a kiss and told me dinner would be ready in 20 minutes. I went to the family room, turned on the TV and tuned into Fox News while I waited. I couldn't help but think about how I was even more baffled that she could confess her love for me daily while engaging in a secret affair behind my back. What really threw me was that this deception had been going on for over 6 years, extending back to our dating days. Tom had revealed the details on Tuesdays, Thursdays, some Saturdays, and especially during my business trips. Tuesdays were supposedly dedicated to card night. On Thursdays, she was close with her college friends and sorority sisters. After our dinner, she would kiss me goodbye, urging me not to wait up, and then head out to engage in more than just bridge. Now I was aware that 30 minutes after kissing me, she would be in a compromising position with her various lovers. Yes, lovers, not just one. After giving her my usual kiss, I went straight to the internet. I found what I needed in less than 5 minutes. A credit card number and a few clicks would get it to my office in 3 working days. I looked at my watch and saw I could still make it to Radio Shack before closing. By the time Maggie got back. After her bridge night, someone tapped our house phone. I was in bed, even though we'd had sex after her card night. I realized that on some nights, I wasn't her first encounter of the evening. To avoid suspicion, I vowed never to let myself be someone's second or third choice. My third option was that I would leave for work before Maggie, and I almost always arrived home after she did. This left me with little opportunity to check the phone tap until Thursday evening, when Maggie left the house for her supposed book club meeting on Wednesday morning. She had a conversation with her mother for about 5 minutes. I'm okay, but you seemed out of sorts last night. I'm a bit concerned about Rob. He seems a bit off lately. Do you think he knows or suspects something? I don't have any concrete evidence, but I have a feeling something's up. Do you want to cancel tomorrow night? No, because if he's suspicious, it'll only make him curious why after years. I suddenly stopped. I think we have to keep things as normal as possible. You both need to stay alert and make sure that nothing gives us away. I'll let him know that we don't want the secret to get out there. There was only one call on Thursday. See you tonight. I love you. See you in an hour. Once again, I pretended to be asleep. Maggie came home while I was asleep, and I had to fight the urge to flinch when she cuddled up next to me on the bed on Friday. My package arrived on Friday, and I read through the instructions. It was a wireless mini camera disguised as a book with motion activation and the ability to transmit signals to a receiver located up to 300 feet away. Tom told me that my wife and her lovers sometimes used our house when I was away on business. I thought they might be using it so that Maggie could be home if I called. My plan was to put the camera in a hidden place during my next trip out of town. I was going to put the device in the trunk of my car. I was thinking about the phone call I got on Tuesday. I realized I needed to address Maggie's concerns and make sure she was okay with things. There was only one way to do it when I got home. Maggie was in the kitchen making dinner. I went up behind her and put my hands on her breasts. I said, "Turn off the stove. I'm starting with dessert tonight." "Is this dessert going to be filled with cream?" She teased. I wouldn't be. I was pretty surprised, so I replied. She turned the stove knobs to the off position, and I lifted her and carried her to the bedroom. I made sure to repeat the gesture on Saturday morning and Sunday night, hoping it would alleviate any lingering uneasiness on Monday. I informed Maggie that I'd be heading to San Diego for 4 days the following week. On Tuesday, I took the plunge and stayed up. I spent some time with her, just engaging in physical intimacy before we fell asleep. After that, Maggie's phone conversations no longer hinted at her suspicion of my peculiar behavior. By Friday, I'd discovered that Maggie was planning to visit her lover before her regular hairdresser appointment. I listened to the recorded conversation and heard the content of. The conversation confirmed my expectations. Will we be revving at your place next week while he's away? Absolutely. I have to be around when Rob makes his nightly check and call. I'm looking forward to next week. No need to rush, there's no frantic race to get you home. I cherish the moments when we can spend the entire night together. I feel the same way. I have to run. I need to. I also cooked dinner for my husband. We had physical intimacy on Friday night, Sunday afternoon, and again on Monday morning before I left for my trip. As I said goodbye to Maggie, I was aware that if the book camera functioned as I thought it would, she and I would no longer be sharing a home. A week later, the camera captured what I expected. The camera didn't capture both of Maggie's lovers at first, which surprised me because I thought it would. But I decided not to worry about it because I'd already got plenty of material for what I needed to use over the weekend. On Saturday, I tried to act normally around Maggie. I went out for a beer with some of the others in the town and we finalized our plans for Monday at 10. On that day, after Maggie had left for work, Phil, Mike and I met at my house to move all of Maggie's belongings by 11. On Sunday, the locksmith arrived and changed all the locks and reprogrammed the garage door opener. I spoke to an attorney to start the divorce paperwork, but we decided to wait to serve the papers until I had visual proof. I saw it on Monday morning. I called the attorney and asked him to serve the papers. Phil and Mike had left, leaving only Tom and me at Murphy's. It was showtime. Tom spoke up suddenly. Just then, my brother Jerry approached us with a lot of anger. What's the idea of suing Christina and me for alienation of affections? Are you out of your mind? No, but you must have been to think you could get away with it forever. You're out of your mind if you get out of here, Jerry. While you still can, don't threaten me. You little. Jerry was 63 and I was only 5 feet 11 inches, so I was little compared to him. I stood up and hit him. I punched him right on the chin. He went glassy-eyed and started to stagger. I hit him twice more and he fell to the floor. I had already warned G, who was behind the bar, about the potential altercation. He just kept drying glasses, looking down at Jerry. I kicked him in the crotch as I was about to kick him again. Tom pulled me back, but I think he understands how you feel. I don't know if he has the courage to charge you with assault, but let's not make it any worse. Then Jerry tried to get up, and I said, Mom and Dad are going to be so proud of you. You wouldn't have the courage. I have plans to have dinner with them on Wednesday night, and they're likely to ask about Maggie's absence. Care to speculate when I'll respond? Oh, and by the way, I used the key you gave me during your vacation to access your home. I moved all of Maggie's belongings to your spare bedroom, so now she can stay there. Instead of just on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I suggested to Tom that we leave this place. I waved at Gus, who waved back, before we left. When I arrived home, Maggie's car was already in the driveway, and she was waiting for me. I pressed the garage door opener button and maneuvered around her. I went into the garage and closed the door behind me, despite her trying to get in before me. Maggie didn't make it in time, so I hoped she'd eventually leave, but I knew she wouldn't. I went into the house and the doorbell started ringing non-stop. I figured it'd keep going until I answered, so I decided to face it. I had already secured the front and back screen doors in the patio after the locksmith visit, so Maggie couldn't get in. She tried to pull the screen door open, but it stayed shut. Let me in, Rob, she pleaded. Maggie said there was nothing for her there. All her belongings had been moved to Jerry's. Christina's place is now your new home, saving you the time you used to spend traveling on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I told her we need to talk, Rob, but she insisted there wasn't anything to discuss. The time for the conversation should have been the day I proposed, but you're saying, oh, gee, Rob, I don't know, I don't want to give up, but if you can see your way clear to share me with them, of course I'll marry you. I would have declined, and we could have avoided what we're going through now. I replied, I need to explain, Rob. She persisted, but while you feel the need to explain, I don't feel the need to listen. All communication will be through my attorney from now on. I closed the door in her face. Maggie pounded on the door for another 15 or 20 minutes, but I simply turned up the TV volume and ignored her. The following day, things took a turn for the worse. After a discouraging start, I was preparing my morning coffee when the phone interrupted my routine. It was Jerry Robb. He said, we need to have a conversation. You misunderstood everything. It's not what you think. I need a chance to explain, Jerry pleaded. Those were the exact words Maggie used last night. I'll tell you what I told her. You might want to clarify, but I have no interest in hearing it. Stay out of my life, Jerry. No calls, no visits, no emails or letters. As far as I'm concerned, you're dead to me. I don't want to see you or hear your voice again. I retorted before hanging up. I was still fuming from the call. The phone rang. Once more, and this time it was my mother. Don't forget you're coming over for dinner tomorrow night. Aunt Grace is in town and I'm hosting a family dinner. My mother reminded me, will Jerry and Christina be there? I inquired. Of course, she replied. Then I'll have to decline. Why in the world would you say that Jerry and Christina are no longer part of my life? I asked. If you want to know why, ask them about their 6-year affair. I explained that it was a year-long affair with Maggie. My mother gasped. Unfortunately, I've been married for 6 years, but it started even before Maggie and I got married. I clarified that I was sorry and asked her to give my love to Aunt Grace and come up with an excuse for why I couldn't make it. We'll talk later, my mother said before hanging up. It pained me to put my mom in a position where she had to navigate family. I knew I had to explain, but I didn't think it would happen so soon. I decided to wait until later, as I thought it would be easier to confront Jerry after my conversation with my mother. I started looking around the house and making a list of things to do to make it more appealing to buyers. I didn't think I could keep the house in its current state if we got divorced. The proceeds from the sale of the house will be a welcome bonus. We had initially purchased it with plans for a future family, but our intention was to start having children at 30. This would have allowed us the freedom to travel and pursue activities that would become challenging with kids. In hindsight, I was relieved we had delayed, as subjecting children to a divorce is never ideal. While contemplating the backyard on the pad, I heard a voice behind me. Afternoon, Rob. Christina greeted me. What do you want to talk about? I asked her. You won't talk to Manu or Jerry, so I thought I'd try, and at least I don't think you'll hit me like you did Jerry. She said, cautiously, no need to talk. Christina, you don't have anything that I either want or need to hear. Since when have I been Christina? It has always been Chrissy or Chris. That was before I found out about you. You've been stabbing me in the back for the last 6 years. Christina, I wired the house before my last out-of-town trip. I have it all on DVD, save your lives now, please leave. I won't hit you like I hit Jerry, but if you don't leave on your own, I'll pick you up and carry you off my property. You can call the cops and have them evict me from your property, but if you touch me without my permission, she threatened to burn me. I locked eyes with her and held my gaze as I took out my cell phone. Be it, I said as I started pushing buttons on the phone. What are you doing? She asked nervously. Taking your advice and calling the cops, I replied. Damn it, Rob. Why won't you be reasonable and hear me out? She pleaded. Because I don't want to, I said. All right. I'll go. She relented and turned to walk around the side of the house and out the gate. I ended the call and spent the next 2 days checking the yard. I didn't answer Maggie's calls, whether they came through my work phone, my home phone, or my cell. My evenings were spent working on home improvement projects and preparing the house for sale. I was fixing a leaking shower door in the downstairs bathroom when I heard a loud noise in the kitchen. I went to investigate and found Maggie entering. "What are you doing here?" "You're not supposed to be in my house since my key is no longer valid." "That's the way I chose to do it." "You're not supposed to be here. This is my home as much as it is yours. Simply claiming I don't live here anymore doesn't change that. You should have hired a better lawyer. Rob, your divorce papers don't specify who gets the primary residence. Pending the court's decision, I've corrected that in my petition. Once you're served, you'll have to move out. I'm countersuing on what grounds I demanded. It's a no-fault case, Rob, so I don't need grounds. However, my lawyer suggested stating a reason, so I'm citing extreme mental cruelty. If there are no complications, the paperwork is rubber-stamped and it's done. I explain that it's not true, but it becomes public record. If someone does a record search, I won't come out looking good. If you want to play it that way, I'll speak to my lawyer tomorrow and change my petition from irreconcilable differences to adultery. Let's see how you do if your name comes up in a record search. I have evidence for my claim and you don't. I told you I had proof and you didn't believe me. I know you were unfaithful, so I set up cameras. Before my recent business trip, I recorded you being unfaithful in our bedroom and on our bed. I revealed this is why I'm involved with Chrissy and Jerry. Maggie asked Jerry what he has to do with this. Don't faint, ignorance. Margaret Estelle, you know what Jerry's role is. The three of you have been betraying me since before we even got married. I noticed a change in her expression as if a light bulb had suddenly lit up. Oh no, Rob, you misunderstood. There's absolutely nothing going on between Jerry and me. There has never been anything between Jerry and me. Yes, there has been something between me and Chris, but never with Jerry. Manny clarified that's not the information I received. You visit Jerry and Christina every Tuesday and Thursday when you're supposed to be at card games and book club meetings. Sometimes Jerry is home, and sometimes he isn't, even when he's supposed to be. He stays in his den or works in the basement. Jerry has never been involved in what Chris and I do. He knows about it, but he also knows that Chrissy loves him and won't seek another man. He allows her those little pleasures. Maggie explained, so you're admitting to cheating on me. I said that's not what cheating means. Cheating implies taking something from you and giving it to someone else. I wasn't cheating on you, Maggie. Did I ever refuse you when you wanted intimacy? No, I didn't. I always satisfied you if you desired it. Who initiated lovemaking? Half the time, it was me. Has our sex life suffered due to my time with Chris? No, it hasn't. We still make love 4 or 5 times a week. Can you point to anything over the past 6 years that shows I didn't love you or? Maggie challenged. I remained silent, allowing her to continue. There's no way you can say we cuddle any less. There's nothing to indicate that I don't love you or deprive you of anything. My involvement with Chris hasn't cost you a thing. Your involvement with Christina is different. I'm bisexual, Rob, and I've been since summer camp. I connected with 2 girls who were also bisexual. Chris was my roommate throughout college. We recognized our shared orientation. We were lovers right away and have been for over 11 years. It's still cheating, and you know it. The fact that you've lied to me for 6 years about your activities on Tuesdays, Thursdays, some Saturdays, and when I'm away proves that you know it's wrong. Maggie countered, no, it doesn't. It just proves that. I love you too much to tell you because I knew how you'd react. Knowing would likely have driven us apart. Of course, knowing you were cheating would break us apart. Damn it, Rob. I wasn't cheating. I didn't tell you because of the thoughts in your head. You're homophobic and you know it. I can't even count the derogatory remarks you've made about Nan. If I'd told you I was bisexual, you'd have assumed I was queer, a dyke or whatever else you use as a derogatory term for people who don't view sex as you do. I never let you know because I needed what I get from Chris that I can't get from you. So you're saying I don't satisfy you in bed? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm extremely satisfied with you in bed, but you don't have the physical aspects I need. You're not a woman, Rob, and sometimes I need what I get from Chris. It means both Rob and I. I need a man, and that's you. I need a woman, and that's Christina. I need both of you. There was a brief pause, and then Maggie broke the silence. She asked what the next step should be. Should we contact the lawyers and ask them to nullify the paperwork? Should we move past this and focus on our marriage? I'm not sure if that's even possible. Maggie, you've shattered my trust. How do I know that, Christina? Is this the only one you've been unfaithful with? I need to be sure there isn't another man in the picture. Can I trust your claim that you had nothing to do with Jerry? All I have is your word, but what is the value of that word? You've proven to be an adept liar for 6 years without me suspecting a thing. Even if you're telling the truth, you are still unfaithful. Call up what you want, Maggie, but to me it's still infidelity, any form of a sexual relationship with someone other than your spouse. If your spouse is cheating, I can move past it with effort, but you have a bisexual nature and not just half the things you claim to have. Can you let go of Christina and find contentment with just me? I asked. Maggie replied, well, there's your answer. I replied, what answer? The answer is no, we won't be calling them. I clarified that I never made that statement. Maggie protested, saying that I had when I asked if I could prioritize our relationship over Christina. I explained that I was being reasonable. I told her that I had explained my perspective to her, but that she hadn't explained hers. Maggie said that she had explained it from her point of view, and that it wasn't an issue for her, but that it was for me. I said that I wouldn't share my partner with anyone, whether it was a man or a woman. My partner is having sex with someone else. That's cheating, and I don't accept it. I said, are you serious? Are you willing to end what we've had over this? Maggie asked, okay, Rob. I'll let go of Chris. Are you satisfied now? Maggie said, no. I replied, why are you giving me what I want? Maggie said, I'm confused. Yes, but you're doing it reluctantly. You don't really want to. I said, as far as you're concerned. I'm forcing you. You resent it and it'll only get worse over time. You still don't see what you did wrong. If you get the chance to do it without consequences, you will. Our only chance was when I asked if you could be content with just me. You said you couldn't. That's what ended our relationship. I explained, Maggie, that the only way it could have continued was if I never found out. Unfortunately, I did. If I'd never found out, our marriage could have continued. Unfortunately, I did go and enjoy Christina and find a man who can accept it. Just make sure you're honest with him before you marry him. I was mad at you for never pursuing a countersuit and for the divorce being finalized. It was painful because I genuinely loved Maggie and that feeling may endure, but I couldn't bring myself to accept infidelity even if she didn't believe she was cheating. I suppose sticking to old-fashioned values comes with a price. My sister married again, but I don't know if she told her new husband about her feelings for Jerry before they got married. What I do know is that she lived in Jerry and Christina's spare bedroom until she left and never came back. My brother and I never got over the rift between us, and Maggie's statement that he never laid a hand on her didn't mean anything to me because I was aware of her actions, but I kept it from me and covered for her, which I felt was just as bad. I reached a point where I could attend family gatherings with him and Christine, but I maintained my distance and we never exchanged words, despite Christina's attempts to bridge the gap. Eventually, I met a woman I liked enough to date consistently. After 6 months, she hinted at wanting a long-term commitment. I asked her if she had any secrets I should know about before she asked about the nature of them. I told her about my history with Maggie. She laughed and said she'd had a few experiences, but she wasn't particularly into them. She preferred fidelity and I'm a big believer in it. I married Betty and things are going well. In fact, she's expecting, and I'll be a father in 6 months. This story makes you think about the complexity of interpersonal relationships, how we perceive betrayals, and how we react to them. It also shows that decisions it can be tough going through a breakup, but it can also be a chance to start fresh and make a new chapter in your life. My wife and I had been married for 3 years when this story took place. We lived in a nice neighborhood that was almost too quiet. We hadn't even considered having children at this point, but I felt the neighborhood was safe enough for kids to ride bikes or roam around freely. My wife and I often went jogging. One morning, we saw a young guy who lived 3 houses away. He was sitting on the front porch and looked pretty young for a homeowner. I figured he was either a first-time buyer or lived with his parents. I waved hello like a friendly neighbor, but he kept his eyes on my wife. He smiled and raised his eyebrows before turning away. I was annoyed, but we were wearing headphones, and my wife didn't seem to notice. I decided to let it go, but I didn't plan on inviting the guy to any barbecues. Later, I came home from work and parked in the driveway. I saw the very same guy walking across my front yard. I called him out and asked what he was doing. I could tell he was trying to decide whether he should turn around or not. He did and awkwardly said he didn't mean to trespass. He said he was just introducing himself to my wife because we'd never been properly introduced. We exchanged names and I was polite, even though I wanted him to feel like I was a bit uneasy about him being there while I was at work, especially after I knew he was gone. I went inside to find my wife. She was sitting at the table for dinner, but she seemed kind of embarrassed. She just asked me if I was okay. I said, yeah, a bit confused. I asked her why. She said she just wanted to check because I was talking to the neighbor on her lawn. I asked her if he knocked on the door to introduce himself. She said yes and suggested we invite him over for dinner or a cookout since I was surprised she called him by his name. I already knew he lived alone and wanted me to invite him to our house, but that wasn't what she meant. I felt a little weird and knew his name, so I decided to search for his online profile. It wasn't hard to find, and neither was his linked Instagram account. I scrolled through and saw a picture of him kissing my wife. It was a recent upload, and it looked like they were hanging out while I was at work. There was no caption, but there was a lot of. People were commenting and asking who the woman was. He wouldn't tell them that my wife was cheating on me with our neighbor. She was kissing him. How long had they known each other? I felt devastated. I had taken vows with this woman. My parents had paid for our wedding. I needed to know why she was doing this and if there was anything I could have done to prevent it. However, her thoughts prevailed. I simply took a screenshot and decided not to confirm my wife until her birthday party. I created a spy Instagram account to following AP, the neighbor. I'm hoping for more proof before exposing her in front of all her friends and family. This was the worst time in my life. I couldn't touch my wife. I couldn't tell her I knew about the affair. I couldn't attack AP like I wanted to. I felt really alone and distraught. I tried to think about the future and how great it would be to fall in love again, but it was too soon. I had too much healing to do. I was just stuck in this kind of purgatory for a while. I was shocked that my wife I didn't even notice when she asked me what was wrong. I planned to ruin the party by presenting a wrapped present and divorce papers. The presents were going to be framed poster-sized prints of her and AP's Instagram photos. I hoped for more proof, but when I saw it, I was infuriated. I was at work when he uploaded another selfie with her, then another. The next day, when they were at the creek, he uploaded a picture of her standing in his bedroom wearing one of his oversized t-shirts. Shirts pulling up her panties. The caption read, Ira. The forbidden peach is always the tastiest. Even though I had to bundle up my jacket and scream into it to keep myself from imploding, this was the proof I had been waiting for. With this evidence, she wouldn't get anything in the divorce and I could start my life over. I was thankful, betrayed, and heartbroken all at the same time. Now I knew she had sex with him. I wondered if it was the first time. I wondered how she was going to act around me. On the way home, I stopped at a print shop to have 6 poster-sized photos and divorce papers printed. It was cheaper than I expected, so I'm pretty sure they gave me the divorce discount when I got home. She was almost normal, except I noticed she didn't want to look at me too long, like she feared I'd see through her facade. She got up the nerve to casually ask me if AP could come to her birthday party inside. I was pretty shocked. I couldn't believe she could ask me that after having sex with him. I believed she was innocent until proven guilty, and I didn't give her any clues that she was on trial. I even surprised myself when I told her AP could come to her party. I just plastered on a fake smile and said the more the merrier as she slept. I framed and wrapped the giant pictures. I also put X-Lax in the cupcakes I baked for the party. AP stood towards the back of the room. It was awkward. Her family and friends didn't know why he was there, so they tried to create chit-chat, but I couldn't tell them the truth, so it became awkward really fast. Everyone had cupcakes first, then I insisted my wife open the divorce papers. When she saw what it was, she looked at me like her soul jumped out of her body, then she looked at AP with her mouth hanging open. Her mom immediately asked what was wrong, but I didn't let her respond or answer her questioning stare. I just handed her the next present, which she opened slowly. When she saw it was a picture of her pulling up her panties, she fainted. Her guests let out a couple of screams and 2 of her friends came to her side. I unwrapped the rest of the photos and turned them around for everyone to see. They gasped. I said my wife was cheating on me with AP. They all looked at him while I opened the other wrapped posters. AP took off, and then my wife woke up and realized what was happening. She just whined and cried while her guests wondered what to do. Her best friend was so shocked and asked her if it was true and what was going on after AP left. My wife tried to follow him, but he didn't stop for her in the car park. She was so embarrassed she couldn't face her mother or friends. She just started walking home and refused any rides from anyone. I drove beside her to talk, but she only blamed me for everything. Days later, she was at her mom's when she said it was my fault AP was costing her. I told her she had a lot of nerve to tell me that she was the cheater. I didn't care what she felt. Even if she wanted to apologize, it wouldn't mean anything to me. I told her I'd left the divorce papers on her mother's porch and she hung up on me. She was supposed to be my wife for life. If she didn't want to be, she should have had a serious conversation with me, no matter how hard it was. If she was that miserable or ready to split, I at least deserved an honest conversation. If there was no issue in our marriage, then I didn't deserve her inconsideration. She only thought of herself and what she felt like doing. She's still living with her embarrassed and controlling mother. She doesn't have any friends or lovers. This is a story about infidelity in a marriage and its consequences. The main character discovers that his wife is cheating on him with a neighbor. He chooses an unusual way to confront the situation by setting up a trap on his wife's birthday. The situation causes deep pain and suffering for both parties. Ultimately, the story reminds us of the importance of empathy and open communication in relationships.